So next up, Christopher Tenrero. I really like your intros, it gives your videos some extra spice. Also, will you play Emrakul again, the spaghetti monster, or another colorless commander? Also, what future plans do you have for yourself, such as career or long-term plans? Thanks. I have a lot of fun with the intros. During Dinosaur Week especially, I just got really loose and kind of just went out there with them. I usually get a good laugh after doing them. It's probably one of the parts that I enjoy most about running the channel. They're just fun and silly to do, so yeah, I enjoy the intros as well. As far as Emrakul, I have been meaning to do another Emrakul video. I was missing one of the most important pieces last time when I did it, which was Ugin's Nexus, which prevents players from taking extra turns. So after you Emrakul someone, they don't get their turn back after you take their turn, so it becomes a full-blown Mindslaver, which is really just unfair. But anyway, yeah, I'd like to get back to Emrakul sometime, so hopefully I can do that soon. As far as a career, this is something that I've thought about quite a bit. It would be amazing if it happened, but it's still so far away. From what I've seen, most YouTubers start going full-time between 100 and 200k subs. There's only a small handful of MTG channels that reach those kind of numbers, so it's just really hard to imagine getting to that place. There are a lot of challenges that I would need to overcome first. These are just a couple of the things that I would have to think about and deal with if I wanted to go full-time. So the first thing, if I wanted to get my sub count that high, I would need to do more than just Commander. As far as I know, there's only one Commander channel in the 100,000 subs club, and that's the Command Zone. And they have a literal team of people that make that show. The other channels do a broad range of content, which I'm not opposed to, but I would have to get to a place where I have enough time to learn the other formats really well to be able to produce content for them and actually add some kind of value, since I'm just not super comfortable in the other formats because I haven't played them in so long. So the top channels also make enough money that they can pay people to help with production or get really cool guests. For example, Tolarian Community College brings in a lot of the cosplayers and stuff. I don't know a single cosplayer. But you get the point. I would need to make a lot of connections that I don't have currently. Another thing that I've thought about, since Magic is kind of limited in the audience that it appeals to, I'm actually a very good guitarist, and I have thought about starting up a music channel. I see a world where I had, let's say, like 50k subs on this channel and 50k subs on the music channel, and then I could entertain the possibility of doing YouTube full-time. Music has a much broader appeal than Magic, so it would be easier to get to a place where I'd actually make enough money to be able to support myself if I were doing both channels. But one thing I worry about that is, I'm a very good guitarist, but I'd be going up against some of the best guitarists in the world. Even though shredding chops doesn't directly translate to views, it can help. Unfortunately, like everything, the music takes a lot of time, but it is something that I've been working on slowly in my spare time. I'll keep you guys posted when I finish any of my music stuff. So yeah, I have thought about the career thing a bit. There's so many little steps that I would need to take between now and then. I mean, I'm around 1,200 subs right now, which is still so far away. Like I said, probably around at least 100,000 to, you know, really make enough money to be able to support myself and make a living. For those doing the math, that's roughly 99,000 subscribers to go. So yeah, there's just a lot of little hurdles, but it would be really cool if it happened. I've been doing the corporate America thing for like 10 years, and it's awful. I hate it. Like, it's just not for me. So like I said, yeah, it is something that I've spent some time thinking about, but there's a long road to go before that's ever a thing. Save Mean, short list of questions, man. Cards you want banned and unbanned in the EDH format. Cards you hate to play against. Favorite commanders not named Aurelia. Worst EDH deck you've ever made and the best one. And if you could make one change to the format as a whole, what would that change be? Specifically a rule change. So I took a look through the current ban list, and honestly, there isn't really anything on there that I would unban. I've played against probably half the cards on the ban list when they were legal at some point, and they're just miserable to play against. Limited Resources would be an interesting one, but I'm sure it's way too powerful. It would be a nice tool for Boros, though. Panoptic Mirror seems interesting, but I'm also sure that that thing is probably just busted city and allows you to combo out like crazy. Though, with something like Paradox Engine already existing, which is a pretty easy to slam combo piece, I don't know that Panoptic Mirror is better than Paradox Engine. Obviously, having the two together is probably really ridiculous, but... So, those would be the ones that I'd be most interested in seeing, but I'd also like to see some pretty significant playtesting around those before that happens also. So, for the most part, I wouldn't really unban anything, but I might explore Panoptic Mirror and Limited Resources a little bit. As far as cards to ban, I am firmly in the ban Mana Crypt and Sol Ring camp. I've seen what they can do over a long period of time, and they just cause problems. People casting 6 mana commanders on turn 2 just isn't where the format should be, I think. If that's what you want, I'd say go play Vintage. because at least then you can run a full grip of Force of Wills and counter people to death and stuff like that. But yeah, if you get Sol Ring or Mana Crypt on turn 1, by turn 5, you've generated 10 additional mana that your opponents haven't, unless they played Mana Rocks also. It's just crazy. I really don't like the games where they go either Mana Crypt Signet or Mana Crypt Cultivate on turn 1. When you get that double acceleration hand, you are so far ahead of the rest of the table. I don't like that feeling of, oh, it's turn 2 and the game's probably already over, and there was basically nothing I could do about it. So I don't love that feeling of having the game be over before you ever really have a chance in the game. Also, back over the summer, they messed around with the ban list when they switched over to the 1 vs 1 ban list, and I got to play for a while without the Mana Rocks, and I thought it was really nice. No one had the crazy turn 2 starts. You actually had a chance if you were just making land drops without accelerating. So yeah, I would definitely ban Mana Drain and Sol Ring. I know there's a million reasons why they probably won't do that, but that's personally what I would do. After that, I would probably ban Mana Drain. Mana Drain is basically a counter spell, which Wizards is generally considered too strong for the modern format, and probably just a little bit too strong in general, which is a debatable point, but I'm gonna go with the general notion that it's probably a little bit too good. Anyway, Mana Drain is a counterspell with a Sol Ring or better stapled to it, because you're probably going to get at least 2 mana out of it, if not 4, 5, or 6. And nothing feels worse than casting something into a Mana Drain. So my second tier of bans would probably be Mana Drain, Cyclonic Rift, and Tooth and Nail, and probably Void Winnower just for experience reasons, though it does become a slippery slope. If you say Void Winnower, then do you ban Iona? I run into Void Winnower just a little bit more than I run into Iona. I've only seen Iona probably, I don't know, maybe 2 times over the last year, so Iona doesn't come up all that much. But Void Winnower being colorless, it's pretty easy to just jam it into a lot of decks. Basically any deck that can support big mana wouldn't mind playing it. And like I said earlier, so many times when I do run into a Void Winnower, I have the 4 mana Wrath in hand, and I just can't use it, and it's just the worst feeling. Oh, and another card that I would ban is Palinchron. Palinchron does not add anything healthy to the Commander format. Great, you've generated infinite mana. You're gonna spend the next 20 minutes basically playing Solitaire while you try to draw out your deck, find some sort of win condition. Wonderful. Yeah, Palinchron is another card that I would ban. I just feel like it's not adding anything to the Commander format. Yes, there will be other infinite mana combos, but at least they take some amount of work to assemble. Palinchron is just so easy to abuse. As far as my favorite commander not named Aurelia, probably Shieldred. It just does everything I want to do. It reanimates my creatures, blows up yours, and Mono Black can do things that Boros can't, like tutor and draw cards, which is amazing. I don't play Shieldred as much as I used to, but I still really enjoy playing the deck. I put out a few Mono Black videos recently, and I really do enjoy just playing the Mono Black style of decks. So, the worst EDH deck I ever made was probably about 4 years ago. I made a Lorthos deck. This was on Magic Online, wasn't a paper deck. That was also a sea creature themed deck, and I was using cards that I liked for their art, like Giant Shark out of the Dark. It was just awful. Lorthos wants you to be more like a mono blue ramp deck, not a bad sea creature tribal deck. With the experience that I have now, I could definitely rebuild a better Lorthos deck than what that one was doing. I don't know, maybe we'll give that a shot sometime in the future, but yeah, Lorthos was probably the worst deck that I've ever made. Best EDH deck that I've ever made. I'm really proud of the 45 creature Aurelia build. It's really powerful, it's unique, and I find it a lot of fun to play. And that was only the first iteration of the deck. I plan to keep iterating on that deck a little bit. The 45 creature thing was really just to see if I could make that many creatures work, and it did. The final version of the deck will probably have a few less creatures, probably still in the high 30s, but have a few more answers to deal with problems that creep up during a game. Right now I'm testing out a build where I've jammed Sunforger and a very small Sunforger package into the deck. That way I can prevent the inevitable blowouts that happen when someone has a Cyclonic Rift, or I had a memorable game recently where someone went Tygam Expropriate, and the game basically just ends because I think they got like 5 or 6 turns out of the deal, something crazy like that. So yeah, the final iteration of that deck will have a few less creatures and a few more answers, and hopefully be able to deal with some of the more powerful stuff going on in the format. So yeah, I'm really proud of the 45 creature Aurelia build. I also really like my Shieldred deck, but it's a fairly straightforward mono black deck. I don't know if I could call it my own build. It's just mono black good stuff. So not a lot of innovation going on in there, but just a deck that I enjoy playing. I haven't talked about it much on the channel, but I also enjoy my Angel Tribal deck. You guys will probably be seeing that one somewhat soon. It's not a competitive deck, but if people are bringing out less powerful decks, I'll get my Angel Tribal deck out. And it's not bad. It's like probably a 7.5, 8 on the power scale, just that it doesn't have a lot of great answers to combo decks or really big mana decks. But that's the one that I probably break out if I just want to have a fun game of Commander where I'm not dead set on trying to win. As far far as one change to the format that I would make, for the most part I think the rules are in a pretty good place. I was really happy when they got rid of the tuck rule. The tuck rule was just terrible to play against. Losing your commander into your deck is just an awful feeling. Basically everyone on MTGO just ran Spell Crumble, and you couldn't really play around it, and it was just a miserable experience. Otherwise, I heard a house rule somewhere where the rule was you couldn't play Mana Crypt or Sol Ring before turn 3, and I kind of like that rule. It prevents the need to ban the cards, but solves the problem of a 6-drop coming down on turn 2. I would probably back the rule up to turn 4 if I were going to implement it, but I think something like that would prevent a lot of the blowouts that happen when someone slams a Mana Rock on turn 1, follows up with a big play on turn 2. So I think that would be a good change for the format. It would be difficult to explain to newer players, and probably not something that they would implement just because it's sort of difficult in practice to execute that, and there's already a million rules in the game, so I know that Wizards wouldn't really go for that sort of thing, even though the ban list is managed by Sheldon. But yeah, I would change that rule so you can't slam your Mana Rocks on turn 1 and essentially win the game on turn 2. Next up, Kilowatt. A little off topic, but how do you feel about the current state of the ban list for Commander? A few playgroups of mine have been testing with certain ban cards that we feel don't have merit for being banned. The one standout card that keeps coming up is Prophet of Kruphix. On the surface, it appears broken, but its ability to be abused is no different than any other card. In addition, there are cards that do similar things, and it dies to removal. So, in regard to Prophet, I have some really bad memories attached to that card. In 1v1, it was basically an automatic loss once it resolves. Here are the problems that I see with it. It basically casts itself for free because you untap on the next turn directly after you cast it. In a 4-player game, it's basically tripling or quadrupling your mana. And the problem is that it also allows you to spend that mana because now your creatures have flash. So you're generating way more mana than your opponents ever can. And if your hand's full of creatures, you can basically just play them out every turn. So it's basically like almost unlimited mana if your hand is full of creatures. And the thing that I ran into is that when someone plays their Prophet of Kruphix, there's almost always a counterspell in their hand to back it up. So you wait till everyone's tapped out, you play it down, and then as soon as it hits the next person's turn, you untap, and there's counterspell back up on that thing all day. So I know that I'm a little biased because like I said, I have some really bad memories attached to that card. But I think even trying to be objective about it, it still seems a little bit too strong for the format in my opinion. So for me personally, I would not unban Prophet of Kruphix, I would definitely leave it on the ban list. And finally, Casper Sejer Larson, you've been killing it with videos lately, I really enjoyed them. I hope you continue making content. It would be cool if you can talk about your paper decks in the Q&A video. Cool. So yeah, let's take a little quick tour of the paper decks that I have currently. I won't go too deep on them. If you guys want to see more, just let me know in the comments. And if there's a couple that people really want to see more of, maybe I'll do a paper deck tech video, so just let me know. So these are probably the 3 oldest decks that I have. Shieldred was the very first one that I ever built, and I used to run that in the 1v1 tournaments that they would have at my local game shop. And it's nothing like what Duel Commander or 1v1 looks like now. The format was way newer to a lot of people, and a lot of people were just exploring and messing around, so it wasn't a hyper-competitive thing. But yeah, Shieldred was the first deck that I ran. It isn't that dissimilar from what I have going on now and what I've played on the channel. It was still a mono-black control deck. I've upgraded things to more optimal card choices, but Grave Titan, Lash Ride, Luxodon Warhammer, those were some of my main win conditions. A few other mono black 6-drops that I thought were really cool. Then a lot of board wipes, Mutilate, Black Sun Zenith, that sort of stuff. If you looked at my very first deck list, it would certainly be much looser than anything that I have currently. But ultimately, the goal of what the cards are trying to do is the same as what it's doing today, just that my lists today are much more efficient, since I'm now a much better Commander deck builder. So yeah, after all the revision, my Shieldred deck is actually really strong, and sometimes I forget how strong it is. It just kind of wins games out of nowhere. That is something I have to be careful of, make sure that, other people are playing their high-power decks, just so it's a fair game. The second 2 decks I also made around the same time. With Ashling, I was looking for a really unique commander that I thought would be a lot of fun, something that people hadn't really seen before, and I remembered Ashling from the Lorwyn days, and I thought it would be a really cool card to build around. It's changed a little bit since I first put it together. At first it was pretty unorganized. Now it's sort of a Voltron deck. You're looking to get like Luxodon Warhammer or Scythe of the Wretched on your Ashling, and if you pop off Ashling with either of those, you're either going to gain a ton of life, or you're going to gain control of all the creatures in play, which is pretty cool. There's some other fun things you can do. I've gotten the Hellkite Igniter Win in this deck, which is a really janky dragon that you can pump up based on the number of artifacts you control. So that's a cool thing to do in this deck. I only have one Eldrazi in that deck, which is Kozilek the Great Distortion, just because it's in there for the card draw and because it's the cheapest of the Eldrazi. The other Eldrazi in paper are pretty expensive to buy, so it's a little bit different than the Eldrazi version that we ran on the channel. Next up is Riku. Again, I built that around the same time, somewhere in 2011, 2012. When I first built the deck, I actually made it so complicated that I could barely pilot the deck. It had a lot of ETB creatures and a lot of bounce spells, and it became this really complicated equation of like, well, if I bounce this creature and I play it, can I double it and then afford to do this other thing? It was really a nightmare to play, but it was really powerful. I remember, so I let someone borrow the deck and I was playing against them with it. They ended up playing a Terastodon and copying it 2 additional times. Pretty nutso, and they won the game right around that point. So it was a pretty crazy deck. I've modified it. Now it's a more straightforward, just play your ETB creatures, try to double them with Panharmonicon and things like that. But yeah, back then I had like all these like weird interactions that you could do with bounce spells and Cackling Counterpart and other craziness going on. But I'm much happier where it is now. It's unfortunately a very slow deck to play. I basically need about 8 turns where I can just try to copy as many Rampant Growths and things like that as I can. And most people don't let you live that long. They get nervous when you start putting 10, 15, 20 lands onto the battlefield. But it's a fun deck that I break out every now and again. So next up we have the Ur-Dragon, obviously Commander 2017 Precon. I need to play this deck more. I played it a little bit, I played it on the channel, I played it in paper a few times. It's still missing something. I need to figure out exactly how much ramp to get in the deck versus how much removal, how much card draw, and how many dragons. And also getting your curve set up the right way is really important with the dragons, because so many of them are 6, 7, and 8 mana. You really want to give yourself some things to do early in the game. So I definitely need to make some more tweaks with this. There are some possibilities I want to try out with things like Tooth and Nail, See the Unwritten, and a handful of other spells that cheat creatures into play really easily. I think those could be pretty good with the Ur-Dragon. So still have more exploration to do on that one. Then we have Edgar Markov. We also played Edgar Markov on the channel. I've been playing this deck in paper for a little while. I don't know. I probably got maybe like 7 or 8 games with the paper version. Still needs a little bit more tweaking. I probably need to get the curve down a teeny bit. Even though it's a really powerful commander, I still somehow find a way to lose almost every game that I play with it. So not really sure what's going on there, but it's a cool commander, it's a fun commander, powerful commander. I don't have my deck list tuned quite right yet. Hopefully it'll get there though. And then we have my 2 favorite decks. My 2 Aurelia decks. When I play, I keep both versions of Aurelia in play just because most people don't know all the text on Aurelia like I do, so they do need to see the text. So I will keep both versions out on the table. I do lead with the altered art for both of the Aurelia decks, so I just kind of switch it out. I keep both decks in the same box. The first Aurelia deck that I built was set up in more of the equipment, weapons of war style of deck that I had done a video on, but I more recently switched it over to the 45 creature build. And right now it's probably down to about 38 creatures because I wanted to get a small Sunforger package in there. Haven't actually had a chance to play it in paper since I made all those upgrades. I haven't been to the shop much in the last couple months with the holidays and coming out of the holidays, January, all that sort of stuff. Hoping to get back there soon with this deck, though. I've upgraded it into basically iteration 2 of the 45 creature build, which is like, it's about 38 creatures, but I've got Sunforger and I've got some protection off the Sunforger package, which I'm really excited to test out in the shop. So yeah, definitely excited about that one. My other version of Aurelia is my Angel Tribal deck, and it's more casual. Power-wise, it's probably in the 7 to 8 range. Basically, you just play a bunch of mana rocks early, and then you just try to start slamming angels. And the thing that I try to achieve with that deck is having Aurelia, Gisela, and Avacyn on the battlefield at the same time. And if things are really looking up, getting Akroma and Rhea afterwards. That's basically my dream team of angels that I want to see him play. There is a Planar Bridge in there. If you get a couple turns off with Sword of the Animist and have Planar Bridge out, you can actually tutor for all the angels you want, and I've been able to do it 1 or 2 times. Unfortunately, the game usually ends pretty soon after you have that much power worth of angels in play, but still, it's probably my favorite deck to play. It doesn't win all the time, and doesn't hold up super well in a competitive meta, but it's the deck that I'll go for if I'm not really sure what to play, and I'm not really sure what other people are doing. So next up, these are probably my 2 most recent decks. I built both of these sometime in mid to late 2017. Dakkon Blackblade, straight up Esper controlled. Had a lot of cool Esper cards lying around. It's got a decent number of counter spells, a lot of board wipes, and just a lot of late game punch. One of the things I've done with the deck, I was in a 5-player game and I had True Conviction and Luxodon Warhammer down with like 20 lands. Everyone on the table had ganged up on me, but I would just keep attacking every turn and gaining so much life back that no one could kill me. Eventually I got there after a very long and grueling game. It's not the best deck. The curve on everything is just a little bit too high, especially for being a control deck that doesn't accelerate super well. But it's a fun deck. I could definitely do some more work with it to make it more efficient. Unfortunately, Daken Blackblade himself just isn't a beacon of efficiency. Being a 6-mana creature with no real ability other than just being big, it's not the easiest control commander to play because at some point you have to tap out 6 mana to get your commander into play, and then if it dies, you got to tap out 8 to get your commander in play. So you're not able to leave up counter spells or react to what your opponents are doing super well on those turns. And then finally we have Avacyn Guardian Angel, otherwise known as the Bad Avacyn. But it's actually a really cool commander for just being able to cast it on turn 5. Actually gives you a pretty legitimate creature on the board, so you can just attack in with Vigilance every turn, and that's nothing to sneeze at. The 7-mana ability is awesome, but kind of hard to activate. Most of the deck around it is built on trying to ramp lands. It's trying to ramp lands so that you can use that ability, and the other thing that's in there is like prison effects and things like Crescendo of War and Duelist Heritage, where I'm trying to incentivize my opponents to kill each other. So far, it's not great. It's worked okay. The dream scenario is you get late in the game with 1 player left, and let's say it's like a mono green opponent and they just don't have a lot of removal. You use the 7-mana ability and they basically can't kill you, and then you can just attack in every turn with your creature until they die. It's an interesting commander, and I'm sure that I could make it more efficient than what it is. It needs some work still, but it is a lot better than most people recognize right off the bat. So that's the most recent deck that I built. I've got a couple decks under construction, but they're so far away that it's not even worth showing them at this point. But anyway, those are my paper commander decks. If you guys want to see more of that kind of thing and actually go through card by card on some of the decks, let me know which ones you're interested in seeing, and maybe we can take a look at that in the future. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this Q&A session. As always, feel free to comment, like, or subscribe. Thank you for watching.